welcome you back today to this episode with Fitz and Heather. We are picking a difficult topic today, one that I feel like is difficult to discuss with you. It's the concept of doing our best as leaders to consciously care. And the reason to me that this is a difficult concept is I feel like it's something like I don't really like talking about it because I feel like all I think of are the ways that I'm inadequate at consciously caring about people. But I also feel like I share that because I feel like, reaching out, expressing that you care about someone who's going through a difficult time or transition in their families and knowing some of the intimate details that are going on in the lives of the people that you lead. That is consciously caring. And I feel like, I'm one person, and sometimes when you lead a lot of people, I always feel like there's only one of me and a lot of you, and there's only so much that I have to give. So that, in some ways, makes me feel like I can be inadequate. And I'm also absorbed sometimes in my own dramas in my own life, and I can forget to stop and think about someone else. But it's a really healthy exercise to stop and think about someone else. But at the same time, I think the only way I can know whether or not I am good at consciously caring is whether or not someone else says I'm good at it. I just don't think it's something we can adequately rate ourselves in.
Right.
It's just something we can always strive to be better at. And I think if you think you're awesome at it, then you may not be as great at it as you think you are. That's just my opinion. So I think that if you're more like me, where you are like more aware of the ways you've failed people, than been there for people, that might just mean that at least you're giving it your best attempt. But today we're going to talk about just some active ways that we can all grow as leaders to consciously care and do that well.
I was thinking, man, I rock at being humble. I'm awesome at consciously caring. Probably not. So, when I think about this, I go back in time. I was 17 when my father passed away, and I got a big brother who's 13 years older than me. And at the time, my brother's best friend, his name was Frank, right? And so when my dad died, one of the things I learned during that time is when somebody loses a loved one, what you don't say is, I know exactly how you feel. That is like the worst thing because there's no way you have a chance of understanding how that person is feeling right now. Even if you have gone through the exact same situation, the exact same loss, you don't know the dynamic that's there and you don't know the hole that's now in their heart. Because in my mind, I was like, really? You know exactly how I feel? Did your dad die when you were in the middle of senior year of high school and you have no way how you're getting to college? You don't know how it's going to work out, how you're getting to college? Like, really? And so, I just got so offended at that during that time. People would just go on and on about it. And, so Frank asked my brother and said, look, your little brother, how's he doing? Is there anything I can do for him? And so my brother told him what I've been telling people. And so at the visitation for my father at the funeral home, I see Frank coming, and Frank comes to the line. He's like, hey, if there's anything I can, he shakes my hand. Is there anything I can do for you? Just let me know. I said, well, $20 wouldn't hurt. Right? Because that's what I was, and he kind of looked at me. I was like, my dad just died. I got to figure out how to get to college. $20 wouldn't hurt. And Frank was ready and reached in his jacket pocket and pulled out $20.
Wow.
And even now, I start getting choked up about that because that meant something to me. That he cared early enough. He didn't dig through his wallet, seeing what he could do. He cared enough. And I found out later that he actually asked the question and come up with that thing to do. And it was impactful. He didn't have to say anything. I knew that he cared. And in that moment, that's all I wanted was somebody just to care and just to be there. Well, and I feel like I don't feel like consciously caring is something that we are naturally gifted at. When I list off my strengths and we list off our strengths as a couple, we don't ever say, we're really good at caring for other people. It's never something that's on our list. I don't think we're bad at it, but I don't think we're great at it. And it is what it is. When we hired our first staff, Joanne, a lot of you guys know Joanne. We hired Joanne back in 2003. We were looking for some part-time help to help me call some current clients. We sat down in the Starbucks in Addison and just chatted with her for it felt like 15 hours. We drove away from there just crying because we were just amazed at how blessed we had just been by this new hire that just been parachuted into our lives. And one of the things we learned really early on was nothing to do with her job, nothing to do with what we hired her to do. Joanne was excellent at caring for other people. Mm-hmm. She cares so much. And some of you guys watching this or mm-hmm. listening to this, you've been personally impacted by her caring. You don't have to tell her to go send somebody a book or a card or balloons or anything like that. I'll just say in passing, hey, I heard so-and-so is sick. And she just, boom, she runs with it from there. And I can't tell you. And listen, I feel like everybody on our staff has that consciously caring. Like they just naturally think about other people and what they can do for other people. But I think everybody on the staff would agree that Joanne laps the rest of us in what she does.
She's helped each of us in our own.
Oh my gosh!
Too.
And so that's a big tip is when you're hiring people for staff, make sure you're hiring people that care more than just the end of their nose. Like they got to care beyond that, and it makes an impact on the culture of your company.
Mm-hmm. I think it's right. It's also important that you have to be diligent and intentional about this, because you got to work on things. It doesn't come naturally, because we all need to improve at consciously caring. So then we all can be more intentional and diligent. I think some of the ways of doing that is, working on knowing their names and the kids' names in their family. I feel like it's important. A lot of times I will reach out first. I might call, I might text someone who's like new in our organization that I don't know as well. And it can feel a little awkward at first. It's like, how the introductions, it just doesn't flow as naturally as you want it to. But I feel like when I make that first open door, at least then maybe they might feel more comfortable then to reach out or call me at a time that they have a need. But I do the best I can to make it feel natural and organic. I'm always really careful not to come across judgmentally. I don't call and be like, hey, what were your dials this week? You got to call and be like, hey, what's going on in your life right now? What's on your heart and mind? How are things going with your family and your kids? And make it only about that, so that you can begin to develop a genuine and real connection with that individual as you start to lead them. And then moments will arise, because we all go through things that, and times when you can show up and try to be there in a really important moment. Fitz was kind of highlighting that earlier in his story, and I was telling, I recently went through a friend who lost her father. It's a close family friend. So I had one of my children with me who's like a teenager, and I was taking him with me to see her, and he said, wow, I feel nervous. I mean, this is someone who sees on a regular basis. And he said, I feel nervous. I don't really want to see her. I don't know what to say to her. And I had forgotten, sometimes you forget, your kids help you remember that I felt that way one time too. Like I knew someone who had gone through an incredible grief or loss. And instead of feeling inclined to pull towards them and be intentional, I felt this need to push them away because I was so scared that I didn't know what to say. And I just reminded him and told him in that moment, less is more. You don't need to say anything. You just tell them you love them. Tell them you're sorry for your loss, and just be there. Show your face. It goes a really long way when we choose to be intentional.
I'd say consciously caring also requires you to be unswervingly respectful. Show respect. I mean, we live in a world right now where everybody just wants to be heard. Nobody wants to hear. And that may be the biggest problem we have in our nation today, is everybody just wants to be heard. And I just, I've got like friends on Facebook that just want to, from college, just want to be heard. And I just want to go, the louder you yell it doesn't mean I'm hearing you better. Like, it's not helping that you're yelling it, right? But then I go, no, that's not consciously caring about that person. They just need to be heard. So rather than focusing on how they're delivering that message, instead, I'm focusing on how I'm receiving it and how I'm showing them that I'm receiving it. They just want to be heard. They need the empathy. They need to know that their opinions matter to somebody else. And I don't have to agree with their opinions to hear them.
That's right.
And to show that respect. Matter of fact, It's even greater when you don't agree, and you are still able to show that respect and be that friend. In our culture in the Fitz Group, and I encourage you as you're building your own business, this is a great culture to have. I talk about it all the time, how we have a culture of cooperation yet competition. I mean, typically in our business, we're attracting competitive people who like to win, people who have won in the past. They're winning now. They're going to win again in the future. But there's just no glory in winning the race if you win and everybody else had a broken leg. So part of the culture of the Fitz Group is we want everybody performing at their best. Then let's be competitive. Then let's see who wins. Routinely around here, we just heard this week in our weekly sales meeting, we heard an agent that wrote almost a $200,000 annuity. It's like $197,000 in annuity, and I won't go through the commissions of that, but it doesn't suck. And he expressed multiple times in the interview with him how he had made that sale because somebody in our organization who makes no money off of him, stands to gain nothing whatsoever, helped him make the sale. And I'm going, my gosh, that's just awesome. And, you know, in our Slack conversations, we have this 911 channel where it's when you're with a client and you need help, you can reach out. Routinely, we see people reaching out, asking for help. Routinely, within minutes, people are reaching back out with the help, and they don't make any money off of that person. They're just helping. That's the culture that we have, and that is what consciously caring looks like on the day-to-day.
Mm-hmm. And I think one other thing too, as we show respect and we practice empathy, the other thing that we try to do as leaders is sometimes you've got to look past the bad and keep your eyes focused on the good in individuals. Because I have a saying on my wall that says, as we focus on the good gets better. If we will choose to look past the rough edges and highlight the good that is in people, I promise the good will begin to expand and grow as we make them feel like they've been heard and understood and seen.
So action items, what should people do?
Well, I think today, I hope that we've just made you think, most likely, as we've been talking about this today, somebody has popped up into your mind and you've thought, I could do a better job consciously caring about that person. We want to encourage you today to call, text, email that person and reach out and consciously care for them. Grow in that way today.
No kidding. That's fantastic. Hey, you know what? Now that you know.
Now that you know.
You know.